Hey guys, welcome back to another Sunday video. I'm actually filming this from my office this week, and I'm doing it ahead of time because I will be out of the office or away from my computer on Sunday and Monday. So without further ado, let's get into this week ahead and talk a little bit about what's going on in the markets and maybe some ideas and setups that we could consider for this upcoming week. Okay, so I do want to start out with the dollar, and we're going to talk about the dollar because right now, as we speak here on Friday, you can see that we are popping to the upside. We did find a little bit of demand there towards the end of the week here when looking at the dollar. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the other individual currency pairs against the US dollar, but specifically, I wanted to point out that, the dollar has been a really tricky one recently. We saw this really pretty sizable downward move after we heard, or we saw the numbers from the jobs report being much worse than expected, as well as some dovish comments from Jerome Powell. And then we sort of saw this bounce back. So we saw price come down here, found some support and pushed off of the lows. Now, I personally, you may have seen my trade video last week where I took a long position on the pound dollar. It went really, really well. And part of the reason that I did that was because I loved the idea of shorting the US dollar here at the 50% retracement. I have since covered my position, closed the position out for a profit. And going into this next week, I am actually flat and looking for some setups, which makes this week even more interesting for the Sunday special. I do like the dollar to the short side. So I'm not going to lie. I still think that the dollar does have more downside. I think that this pop here on Friday may just be a short-term thing. And I do think that it is possible that the dollar remains dovish now or bearish. And again, that is due to the dovish comments from Jerome Powell. And until we see something that is really game changing or really, something that really sets the dollar apart and makes it more bullish, there is nothing fundamentally that really makes me strong on the dollar. Now, granted, to be fair, there are some strong, sort of recovery numbers coming out for the dollar. But until the Fed sort of starts changing their position on tapering and their positioning on rate hikes, anything like that, right? They continue to come out with ideas and concepts that are mostly dollar bearish. So again, I am dollar bearish. I do like these areas. If price does pop up into this zone again, I may look to pick up some long positions on other currencies relative to the dollar, maybe even a long position on gold, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's go take a look at EURUSD. But before I do, let me just pause before I forget to go show you guys upcoming news for this week. I'll really quick pull this up. This is forexfactory.com. On the calendar, you can see for red folders this upcoming week, we have some speeches here for the Australian dollar, which could be impactful. Anytime you have someone from the government or central bank talking, it has the potential to really move the underlying market due to their change or, setbacks, progressions in monetary policy and economic outlook. Another really big number here this week for the dollar. So again, another chance for the dollar to either show its sort of reasoning for why it should get stronger or to continue to be bearish. We do have inflationary numbers coming out for the US on Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. US Eastern. That should be pretty market impacting. Of course, we also have it for the pound as well. The UK's inflation numbers coming out. We have CAD CPI. So big inflation week next week coming into the markets. Of course, we have NZD GDP. All of these, again, are market impacting. Aussie unemployment. And of course, ending out the week with big folders on Thursday with core retail sales and retail sales figures. So we will see what that has to bring. Again, it could be a very strong dollar week or it could be a very weak dollar week. I know that's getting confusing on the play on words, but I will say for me going into next week, at least from what I've seen in the numbers, what I've seen in monetary policy, I am bearish on the dollar. And so what that means to me is that, breakouts to the upside on things like EURUSD, I do actually like to the long side. So one setup that stands out to me for the euro dollar specifically would be, can we get that breakout of this little downward channel? We've been seeing some lower highs. We've seen a little bearish structure. Can we get the breakout? Because until we break out, there's no need for me to rush to go buy this thing because again, we are seeing some bearish price action here on Friday. We're seeing some strength to the downside there by the dollar bulls to push this thing lower. However, like I said, if we can see a breakout, something like this, absolutely love the idea of looking for pushes to the upside there on the euro dollar. Now, please remember, this is not me telling you to go take these trades. This is just me sharing my opinions in the markets. So I do like euro dollar to the long side. And another reason I do like it as well is that look at the daily chart. The daily chart, we found pretty key support. Now, back at the time, I thought that we may see the break underneath and that maybe dollar strength could come back in if we had something along the lines of, a more rapid tapering and maybe confidence in rate hikes, things like that. We did not see it. The fundamentals did not marry up with that, and the technicals started to reflect it. We saw price really start to drift higher, and I think that until things change there with monetary policy here in the U.S., I think that the euro dollar has the potential to drift higher. On one more key level, again, if things get crazy next week, or I guess this week, depending on when you're watching this, if things get crazy, if we're able to break and retest and go higher from there, even watch 1.19, because 1.19 is a very key psychological level for the Euro USD. We had major resistance back here. We had major resistance in the past, several days. We saw the euro dollar reject that level very strongly. So if we can get above that and stay above that, that would be a huge bullish signal. And what about a bearish signal? Well, bearish signal, if this continues to be a strong down or like a channel to the downside and it shows enough strength to get us underneath key levels of support, maybe there's some sell side action, especially if the numbers come out very strong for the dollar next week. We have, again, a couple major news releases for the dollar. If they come out really strong, you may see the euro back down to the lows. Very possible, but going to wait and sort of see what the numbers have to offer. If the numbers come out very weak, like I said, that would be the more interesting scenario to me, would be dollar long side, looking at setups like this and this. These are both prime setups, in my opinion, based on price action and my sort of fundamental and technical strategy. Next up is going to be GBPUSD. Again, gotta love this pair because this pair was one of my biggest winners, actually my biggest winner in Forex ever, actually. I shared the trade on YouTube here, the trade that I sent out to members. Real quick, just for good old time's sake, I'll brag about it a little bit longer here and I'll show you where you can see some of the trade details. So inside of our Discord, if you're not already in the Discord, you can see all of the trades that I am taking in real time. So I said I'm going long on the pound dollar and really have the same bias going into this week. So that's why I'm bringing this up as well. Fundamentally, as I've been talking about, I'm bearish on the dollar, as mentioned in previous posts, due to the recent poor jobs numbers and dovish outlook from Jerome Powell. Now, this was 9/8, so it's been a few days since I took this trade, 2 days now from when I'm filming this. And so I am still bearish on the dollar, bullish on the pound. I do like the pound quite a bit. They've had some very strong fundamental news recently, talking about possibly, increasing taxes in the UK, as well as some monetary policy statements that, are threatening to rate hike, which rate hikes, as we know, for currencies are usually considered pretty bullish. So I do like the pound to the long side. I took this trade and I was able to just keep trailing stops. It was my absolute, like I said, my favorite sort of scenario to be in. I caught that move to the bottom there, picked it up at support, and it just never came back for quite a while. And I was ultimately able to get out of the trade and shared that trade on YouTube. So feel free to go watch that video if you would like to see the full trade breakdown. It's a long video, so I apologize for that, but it's a detailed one on that trade. But again, every trade that I take is shared inside of Discord. If you're not already in the Discord and you would like to join us, there's a link down below in the description underneath this video and a promo code for you to get a discount if you would like to join us. By being a YouTube subscriber, you just plug that code in and you get a discount to join us. I think it's $5 off if you get a monthly or yearly option. And if you go for the gold package, it is 25% off. So check it out if you've been meaning to join us. There's your chance. So what about the pound today? Well, I do like the pound to the long side, but I think it's really done its move here, for now at least. I could be completely wrong. Next week we may see this thing just launch to the heavens, depending on what happens with the dollar. But I do think that the trend here is to the, we're seeing some strength to the upside. That is true. But I think that this recent run up may be a bit tired, maybe just a little bit of time needed to pull back and to consolidate, maybe head back to this trend line and find support. That could be something of a reasonable expectation for the pound next week. Maybe we get a pullback week for the pound. Again, double topping here on Friday with lots of resistance coming in at that 1.388 level. So I do like this thing, to the long side overall. So you're not going to catch me shorting this right now unless something really changes with the dollar. But for the most part, I do like it to the long side. So opportunities to go long may include, let me see if I can draw in some fibs. This might be helpful to our analysis as well. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in just a bit more. We'll draw a fib from the swing low, right around where my previous entry was, and then to the swing high. So I do like the idea. I'm not going to rush here, but I do like the 61.8. Right? So arguably you've got some support here at the 38.2. Maybe that holds pretty nicely, but for me, just going off this trend line, I would like to see a bit deeper of a retracement before I jump in, especially knowing that news is around the corner. Sometimes with that news, it can cause some volatility and we could spike very quickly down to that 61.8. So I'll keep an eye on this area. I do like it a lot for potential support as well as a pullback in the context of an uptrend, sort of my bread and butter style of trading. But again, for now, double topping there, finding some resistance on the pound dollar. And until further news, notice this is sort of a pause, looking for setups going into next week. Let's talk about dollar CAD. Dollar CAD is another interesting one. Look at this. So the dollar CAD bouncing very, very sharply off of this level. And this is really interesting, you guys. Check this out. So I had marked this level as support that had been broken. Then we retested, failed and broke out back up, retested, and now it does seem like the bulls are making their case here. So the dollar CAD trading higher here on Friday as the dollar is maintaining its strength. Not a really interesting currency pair to me right now. It is quite back and forth. We do, have this major area of resistance to keep an eye on. So if you're watching the dollar CAD next week, maybe something like this or something like this. And the reason I say both cases, you could say obviously it's going to go one way or the other. My point with saying this is, okay, maybe if we see very strong dollar bullishness from the news next week, if we get a bullish catalyst, that's the word, the key word there, a bullish catalyst from news or some form of figure, maybe inflation is better than expected, etc. That could be very positive for the dollar, send us launching higher. And maybe in that case, you look for scenarios like this, where you get that pop above, the retest of support, and bam, you're looking at that long bias setup, flag patterns, that sort of thing. And then flip side, let's say things are disappointing for the dollar. It's strong enough of a catalyst to get us underneath support and looking at potentially selling into that retested resistance. So I like that idea personally, either way, depending on what the numbers come out next week for the dollar. My bias, of course, would be a short side because I do like the dollar more to the short side at this time. Of course, next week that might change if the numbers really surprise myself and everyone else. But again, that is where I'm at sitting on this. But again, look at this. That is some strength coming in to the dollar against the Canadian dollar. That's, what, 4 or 5 hours of trading here on a Friday, just absolutely bullish, all out, upside. So that's kind of crazy to watch there here. Also, if you're looking at these charts, by the time you're watching this video, it might be a little bit different looking. The markets still have a couple hours before they close, but I'm doing this on higher time frames on purpose to sort of give you guys an overview that should be still relevant on Sunday. Okay, next up is going to be, let's take a look at GBPJPY. We'll take a look at the pound against the yen. And I want to show you something kind of interesting. The pound against the yen had a very strong week. As I mentioned, the pound became very strong. And I wanted to point out this little concept. We do have this little context of a sort of broken channel to the upside. We saw price remain above that level here on Friday, even with the pullback coming in. So we saw something like this. We saw big impulses, retracements, consolidation, and a breakout there on Friday. So I think that this pattern, until further notice, looks like it is set to continue. Like I told you earlier, I do like the pound to the long side. Maybe a retracement back to here is the kind of buy that I could see myself taking next week. Of course, any trades that I take, you guys will see them inside of the Discord. I share every trade I take in detail here with full breakdowns, analysis, etc. But I do like pound yen. It's on my watch list. I do like pound yen to the long side specifically. Not too interested in shorting this thing until, maybe if we have more risk off sentiment come into the market. But for the most part, pound yen to the long side looks very clean to me. And we'll mark out some levels where it could go. If it does get very bullish, you may see a push all the way up to 153.2. That level sticks out just because we have strong resistance there on the daily chart where we double topped here and here back in July and in August. So A retest of that level seems reasonable to me. We are seeing, like I mentioned, some strength coming into the pound yen overall, and this counter trend failing towards the end of the week looks extra special for bullish momentum, in my opinion, here for the pound yen. So we'll watch that one for sure next week. Next up is going to be the Kiwi against the US dollar, or NZDUSD, another very bullish currency pair. I mentioned earlier this week that I wanted to be a buyer, but it didn't quite get down to where I was looking at it, which was right here. Sometimes this happens in Forex. It's a little bit frustrating, but it is the reality of trading. So I'm watching this one going into next week. If it does retrace further, again, we look like we may be double topping here on Friday. So that may give us a chance next week. We may see the chance to pick up some Kiwi dollar on the long side. So keep an eye on that for sure. Finally, we'll take a look at XAUUSD, taking a look at gold here. And I do like gold also to the long side. As you'll note, a lot of these things I am bearish on the dollar. So gold, I am naturally a bit more biased towards the long side. I do think that gold may be wanting to come down a bit more. We may be headed to retest 38.2. You can see this lower high coming in. It does seem like gold could reasonably push lower down into that 38.2% retracement. So we'll see if that can play out. If that comes into play, I may be interested in trying for a buy, but the main concern I have for gold on the bearish side is this multi-top that we have been seeing in the last several weeks. It seems like the sellers just will not let price break 1830, and that is sort of in my opinion, a very strong case for the sellers who are watching this and saying, hey, look at that. We were able to get underneath support. This trend line looks very, very broken, right? So to me, I would say if you are a bear on gold, a key spot would actually be to exactly what I just said, this area of support. You would probably want to see it break. Right, so if you're a bear on gold, looking for this setup next week, if we get very strong very strong CPI and retail sales numbers, that could be the catalyst to really start gold back in the downwards direction. So keep an eye on that if you are, like I said, dollar bullish or gold bearish. So definitely a couple things to think about. Like I said, you guys, join us inside of the Discord if you're not already in there. I think this is a great chance to join us. We've got some very, very exciting markets to trade right now. Myself and Frank and Patrick are actively trading this, and we also do coaching webinars. So if you're a newer trader, let me just say this really quick. If you're a newer trader and you're out there just struggling, you have no trading plan, you don't know what you're doing, you're just sort of lost and you're losing money in the markets, I would highly encourage you, Take my suggestion here. Instead of losing your money in the markets and just throwing it at the markets blindly, take a small portion of that money. It costs $45 with the discount to join our group for an entire month, and you can soak in so much knowledge from myself, from the other traders that we have at A1 Trading, as well as our community chat room. You can work with other people, meet other people from around the world, read up on our educational material, go through our strategy library, go through the webinars and all sorts of stuff that you can have access to. Again, just for that one-time fee, you can get in there and probably change a lot of the bad habits and losing streaks that you're having in the markets. If that's you, I'm talking to you specifically. I want to encourage you, come join our group, especially if you made it this far in the video. You're obviously dedicated to this. You want to take it to that next level. Come join us, try it for 1 month. Like I said, it's not like a $1,000 course or anything like that. It's $45. We have a whole team of people that work really hard to build and keep this community running. So it helps us to keep going. And again, like I said, if you want to join us, there's a link down below in the description. We'd love to have you. We'd love to meet more of you, and hope to see you in there soon. Guys, with that said, have a great week, trade safe, and we'll see you back next time.